When I turned 35, I felt like shit. Not in some like really dramatic overnight kind of way, but more slowly realizing that the person I used to be felt so much further away. My energy was gone, my motivation was gone, my mood was all over the place. I was anxious and tired, depressed, and honestly embarrassed by how far I had let myself go. Which was really hard to admit because for over 10 years I had worked in the fitness and nutrition industry, so my health was such a part of who I was. It was my identity. But now I looked in the mirror and saw someone I barely recognized. An average, out of shape dad who felt like he had lost his edge. So I tried to fix it. I started working out again, 3 to 4 days a week in my garage, in the middle of the Texas summer heat. At the time, I told myself I was being disciplined, but looking back on it, I think I was just punishing myself for how out of shape I had gotten. I cleaned up my diet, I had quit drinking entirely almost a year before, and I was doing all of the things that were supposed to work, but they didn't. At least not in the way that I expected them to, and certainly not like they had worked for me in the past. That's what eventually pushed me to start asking different questions. Was this just age? Was it stress? Was I just that out of shape and too far gone? Or was something else going on? This search led me deep into the world of TRT, hormone optimization, peptides, and GLPs. And the deeper I got, the more I realized just how confusing the conversation really is. So instead of pretending like I had it all figured out, I talked to some experts to help me understand what's real, what's hype, and what men actually need to know. Are we in a space where people are more informed or more confused, kind of based on your experience and what you've seen?
Both. And I'm going to answer this question very delicately here. We are in a time frame where people are absolutely the most informed they've ever been in their life. I mean, you literally have, I have a phone right here. Like I have the internet right here. I have everything known to man I can access from this right here. So we're in a time of information, in my opinion, probably information overload, where it's just coming at you from all different angles. And to answer the second part of that question is, um, are we getting the information? Is the information accurate? Um, the problem is there's so much misinformation out there. So it gets really hard. It's basically who's screaming the loudest is really what becomes the forefront. And you could be correct factually, but if you're not screaming the loudest, nobody's going to listen. So consumerism of information, it's out there, but finding the accurate information is very challenging.
Have you noticed an increase in people just coming in and before they even have a baseline, before they even run labs, before they even have a starting point or a reference of where they are, they're already asking to begin TRT?
Yeah, and I even phased my clinic setup different to where like I really won't even talk with them till they've had a set of labs. But I've had guys who like, man, I knew I was low, so I got underground testosterone and just started it. And now I know I'm not doing this right. So I would like for you to do it appropriately. And I am feeling better. So I know it's in this realm somehow to make me feel better. So can you just kind of take over and do it appropriately, monitor me. So make sure that I'm doing it, from a pro longevity standpoint and getting pharma grade testosterone and dosing appropriately.
In terms of, what we see online, be it forums or, podcasts or just influencers, like what are some things that you've seen people really just flat out get wrong? What does the internet get wrong about TRT?
Yeah, there's definitely some recurrent themes, some things that won't die. So, estradiol or blocking estrogen is a huge one. Just comes up just every single day. It really does. The need to donate blood because people see their, testosterone raises hemoglobin and hematocrit by about 10% on average in most people. I mean, for some people that puts them slightly into the red on their labs. You're like, oh, this is high, and everyone gets excited. The patient sees it, the primary care doctor sees it. A new provider to hormone replacement therapy sees it and gets all excited. And same thing with with estrogen or estradiol. They're either using the wrong test in general. They probably shouldn't be testing it at all. But but then they see this number out of range. Everyone gets upset. They think they have symptoms, and there's really not a good reason to do that. So those are two big ones. And then I think dosing and frequency is another huge one. So people are there's a lot of argument back and forth about what's the best dose. The best dose is the best dose for you, and that's why there's this argument. It's not going to be the same for everyone. But to go along with that, there's a lot of dosing that's being prescribed that's just horrendous. Once a week dosing or once every 2 week dosing, a very small dose. Hey, we'll just give you a little bit so we can top you off. That's not the way this works, right? Exogenous testosterone is going to shut you down. If we don't give you enough to overcome that, we're going to chemically castrate you. So I probably talked to about one person a week whose doctor did that to them, and they're a little bit pissed to know that. Like, hey, my doctor started me at 100 milligrams every 2 weeks, and my numbers came back lower, and I feel like absolute crap. And he just told me, well, I guess TRT doesn't work for you. Oh, that's just awful. He just tortured you for no good reason because, well, they probably weren't interested in treating you in the first place. They should have just punted and sent you to someone that knows what they're doing, that could take care of you, or they have some bias against it and didn't want it to work for you. So those things are all a real shame, and they have people doing things unnecessarily.
I think basically, if you're looking down the barrel of TRT, you're kind of at that point where you're about to approach starting treatment. Is really, you kind of want to almost say, right, well, this is an important step that could be completely life-changing. But like we said about meeting the treatment halfway, what is it that I can bring to the table in terms of maybe the next 6 weeks before my review? Well, let's say I'm going to plan to hit the gym, let's say 4 times a week. I'm going to do some cardio. I'm going to watch what I eat. I'm going to have a regular bedtime and a regular wake time. I'm going to be mindful of what sort of, supplements I'm taking. Maybe ask my provider in terms of, well, is there any sort of recommended baseline supplements that I should be considering? Classic would be sort of fish oil, like high strength omega-3. Might consider some nighttime magnesium, vitamin D3, K2, and maybe a good quality multivitamin. And then you basically kind of really almost looking at it as bizarrely enough, as a sort of work assignment in terms of, you're planning out the next 6 weeks. You don't have to be sort of overly crazy, go become living like a monk. But really, if you kind of set yourself a plan that you will kind of try your best and ultimately stick to well, that is literally going to be, that is where you talk about TRT being a game changer. And it can be, not always, but it can be a rather quick game changer as well. And so I would almost look at it as a bit of a sort of challenge in a sense, but a positive one, because it really can be something that basically supercharges whatever you do compared to having low testosterone. So all of a sudden going to the gym feels good. You get a nice response. You're responding body composition wise better to it as well, but more psychologically and physically to begin with. And all of this just sort of cascades into more of a positive cycling as well.
And so this is where the TRT conversation gets just a little bit more complicated, because it is easy to say, just sleep better and eat better and exercise more. And all these things absolutely matter. But what if the reason someone has no energy, no motivation, no drive is a result of having low testosterone? Is it the lifestyle factors contributing to the low testosterone? Or is it the low testosterone contributing to these difficulties in implementing these lifestyle factors? Maybe it's both. And I can say for me personally, I wanted to make sure that everything that was in my control, all of my lifestyle factors, all of my rhythms, habits, and routines were all accounted for. So I was working out consistently. I was eating much better than before, tracking my calories, tracking my macros. I was making sure that I prioritized sleep, getting enough sleep, the quality of sleep, all of these things that I know to be effective, I was doing them. I cut out alcohol. I didn't have a single drink of alcohol for over a year. Yet all the things I was doing weren't really providing any results. They weren't really getting me anything out of that hard work I was putting in, which almost created like a negative feedback loop of thinking, what's the point of all this effort if it's not doing anything? So I got my blood work done. I got my labs back and found out that I did in fact have low testosterone. I was hypogonadal. And after only a short while of beginning my testosterone replacement therapy, I already started to feel improvements in mood and energy. My cognitive function was incredibly improved. These were early wins that really gave me that signal that I was on the right track, that things were happening and moving in the right direction. And it also gave me hope to realize that all the hard work I'd been putting in, laying the foundation, now had a path forward.
Not to give a, concrete timeline of, results and outcomes, but, early on, what can someone expect versus like maybe 6 months, 12 months in? What can someone expect?
Assuming the dose out of the gate is somewhere in the right ballpark, you'd probably say, like I review patients with about 6 to 8 weeks in. If they're coming back to me after 6 to 8 weeks and they're reporting, noticing some positives, that's a good sign. Usually you'll be thinking above what I would describe as above the neck changes. So maybe some reduction in anxiety. Like you said, they might notice that their mood or motivation feels a bit easier, a bit improved. They might have, probably brain fog might be the quickest thing that starts to clear up to some extent in that first 6 weeks. The way to think about it, especially if you're doing the right things, like you mentioned about you're kind of meeting the medication halfway, is that the beauty of the treatment is it does create these positive reinforcing cycles, which is almost the reverse of how low testosterone can behave, which is where you get into a sort of negative spiral rather than a positive spiral. So I sometimes liken it to sort of, you're a boulder falling down a hill, and what testosterone will step in and stop the boulder from going any further and give you a hand back up the hill. Sort of remarkable results you can see come from is the fact that, yes, you feel better from the treatment, but also you set up these positive reinforcing day-to-day things that are going on that really change you from A to B.
Unrealistic expectations with TRT. Yeah, because it's easy to hop on the internet again, and now you're seeing, man, I had amazing results, and my brain fog is gone, my energy is back, erections all day long, I gained 15 pounds of muscle, all this stuff. And then, the average guy comes in, he starts taking it, and a couple of weeks go by, and he's like, I'm not noticing any of this stuff. So it really comes down to a provider giving you good education about the expectations. And again, I tell people this isn't going to work without the lifestyle stuff. If you tell me you're not going to the gym, you're not sleeping well, you're not eating well, you're overly fat, you're stressed out, it's not going to be, it's going to help a little bit, but it's not going to be the synergistic effect that you're going to see if you have all these other things in. So I think setting expectations, and all these things can happen, and they do happen. It's just a matter of things take time. Testosterone is kind of it's a little bit of a long game.
I don't want guys to really start testosterone and peptides and supplements everything at once. Really, I want to see get the variables we need first, let those sit, see how they live their life with them. And then we can add other stuff as needed along the way. But I don't really like just, here's 12 different things at once. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, great. We'll play it from here. It's like, no, some simple is better a lot of times. And I get patients from other clinics who that's what they've done. And then they're kind of in this like, hey, I feel worse, but better at the same time. I don't really know what I feel, but I just know it's not right. And it's like, okay, well, let's get rid of your estrogen blocker. You don't need this Clomid, like gonadorelin. I don't know why you have both of the Clomid and gonadorelin and neither of them are working, and it's like, let's back all the way off and let's just do testosterone. Let's clean up the protocol a little bit so it's tolerated better. And then in 8 weeks, we can maybe add something else.
If you don't learn to make the lifestyle change with the intervention or use the tool that you've been given appropriately, you'll never really make a whole lot of change. You'll just be kind of stuck in this endless cycle. I mean, like for us to like give a guy testosterone, for example, my requirements are pretty basic. Like clean up your diet a little bit and lift weights at least 2 days a week. Literally, that's all you have to do. If you can do that, I guarantee you're going to reap some pretty good rewards from the testosterone.
So something I personally had to get over early on was viewing TRT as some sort of shortcut. I grew up in the 90s, which was the height of the steroid craze, of seeing all these professional athletes get popped for performance-enhancing drugs. It seemed like anything that would help you perform better was off the table. It was off limits. It was a steroid. It was cheating. So I had to reframe it in my mind of really viewing it the proper way. Testosterone replacement therapy is just that. It's replacing the levels of testosterone that your body should be at. And if it's not naturally producing those levels, it's just a medical intervention to get you to the place where you should be, so you feel your best. And I think this is about where my view of TRT really started to change. Because at first, feeling the benefits, it was easy to attribute everything good to TRT. But it wasn't testosterone that did the workouts for me. It wasn't the testosterone that changed my diet. It didn't automatically fix the broken parts of my routine and rhythm and system. But what it did was make those things possible again. And maybe that's the real story here. TRT allowed me to make the transformation. It allowed me to do the things I needed to do to get the results I was seeking. And as of today, around 9 months in, I can say with great certainty, I feel much better. My mood is far improved. My drive, determination, my focus are all just radically improved. I'm finally starting to see a little bit of physical change, body composition changes. It's slow, but it's there, which gives me that feedback loop that I need to see that these are the things I need to be doing to get to where I want to be. And maybe an unexpected bonus is that challenging myself feels good again. I've heard it phrased that TRT makes effort feel good. And I can't think of a better way to sum up just that experience personally that I have felt. Doing hard things feels good. I enjoy challenging myself and pushing myself again. Whereas before, I lacked the motivation to even do the thing. And now I'm seeking out how to make it maybe a little bit more challenging because I know on the other side of that is the result I need. So my journey is far from over, but I can say I am very pleased with what I've seen happen so far. The results, the improvements, just the overall outlook on things, it's so much better than it was even a year ago. So it gives me the excitement and the confidence to know that if I continue these things, I will continue to see results, to get closer to the person that I know I could be and that I want to be. Back to myself again, not like a shell of myself like I felt 9 to 12 months ago, but more like the me that I know is in there. So if you've taken anything at all away from this, I hope that it is maybe a little bit of encouragement and maybe helps to demystify the world of TRT. While I'm certainly no clinician and no expert in the space, I have had conversations that have really helped to shed light on really some of the best paths forward, that the protocol that's right for you is the one that's right for you, that there's not one cookie cutter approach that's right for all people, but finding a provider who meets you where you are, who listens to your symptoms and challenges and struggles and really maps out a path forward that best fits you and your needs. So seek that out in a provider. Seek out the person who listens and understands what you're trying to achieve. I personally am not trying to become some Herculean monster and take, abusive steroid levels of testosterone. I just want to feel more like myself again, less like the shell of a person I felt like a year ago, and more like the person I know is in here. And if that's you, I would confidently say to you, TRT is a great thing to consider. If you get your blood work done and you find out your levels are low, finding a provider is a great path forward. So I hope this has been helpful, and see you in the next one.